Hi. So the intention of this video is a bit of a follow-on from my other video, which explained a little bit more about what Femtech is and all of the different sort of parts that make up Femtech. So this is a sort of continuation of that discussion, and it's talking about the challenges that face Femtech and really how we can all help Femtech to be successful or help the innovation within Femtech and really the vision of what is behind Femtech come to life and be a reality. So I guess one of the first initial challenges that we should talk about is mindset. And really this relates to the fact that a lot of the subjects or the conditions or the things that Femtech covers are sort of cloaked in stigma and taboo. So what it means is that it's harder for these companies to get the message out there because people aren't as willing, I suppose, to share openly if they, for example, are using a sexual wellness app, or if they have problems with fertility, or if they're, finding changes in their body because of the menopause. So I suppose one of the initial challenges to overcome is education, and for us all to just be a little bit more open in talking about the things that affect women's health. I guess it's a chicken and egg situation because by having Femtech there, it means that some of the things are being talked about, but in turn we need to support the Femtech industry by showing a willingness to ourselves talk about the issues being covered. One of the things I would say is a challenge is also education is expensive. When we're talking about business, it's much easier to have a product that you're selling that directly has that is directly solving an issue that people readily want to talk about. So I guess one of the issues here is that Femtech companies are having to sort of do two things. They're having to educate people on the reason why their products even exist, and at the same time sell their products. So it's a difficult process, and it's probably a more expensive and lengthy process for business. Okay, so education, we all have a part to play there. And really education then links into another wider important challenge for the Femtech industry, which is funding. So last year, 2020, in the US, there was just over $1 billion worth of investment into Femtech or women's health companies. And that was into about 63 businesses, 60 something businesses. The year before there was a higher volume of investment, so 93 companies were invested in, but the amount that was invested was lower. Anyway, one of the big stats about Femtech is, I think, talking about how much it's going to be worth by 2025. And one of the big things always mentioned is obviously it appeals to 50% of the world's population, but also women are more likely to purchase digital health products, and women tend to have the biggest influence on household spending. So ultimately, there's an awful lot of potential money. So then the question is, why is that not being translated into investment into solutions that will help women? And again, I guess it's related to education. So if the people who are investing in these companies are men, then they are, for whatever reason, historic stigma, kind of disinterest, whatever, aren't open or willing to talk about a women's health product. So essentially, they don't want to hear about vulvas or vaginas, and it just makes them uncomfortable. That's one kind of rationale, but ultimately, it does seem to be that the old things are at play. That for whatever reason, male-led companies are getting more investment. Full stop. So I don't know how you can argue against the fact that there is inherent gender bias going on. So then it means that what's also interestingly happening are a rise in female-focused investment companies. So the likes of Avestra Ventures and Portfolio, who are specifically focused on funding women's health ventures. So it's really interesting that there's sort of, and I'm not quite sure which way it sort of, I guess it must have come about that there's recognition about how much potential there is, profit-wise in women's health, and then obviously these companies were started being founded, and then these venture capitalist companies were sort of recognising that they had an opportunity as well to sort of get in on that. So it's interesting that there's sort of been parallels between the two. So the companies are evolving, but then equally the investment is evolving too. And so again, another sort of lead on from that is medical research and pharma. So if pharma can see that this is a growth area and that it will make them money, then that should mean that there is more investment going into these kind of conditions. I think it was quite interesting in the middle of last year that Bayer, who have a big women's health sector of their pharmaceutical company, acquired Candy Therapeutics, who are in menopause treatment or menopause symptom treatment. And if you know Bayer, then historically they've been in the birth control area. And it, to me, the rise in femtech and the way that people are controlling their contraceptive in a different way, I wonder if it just means that Bayer have opened their eyes to the fact that they need to look at women's health and more broadly, and consider that, contraceptives or hormonal contraceptives in their form aren't necessarily going to be the big winners for them ongoing, and really they should be turning their attention to the real potential of the menopause market. So it was an interesting acquisition, and to see some of the big pharma beginning to make sort of moves into the wider women's health arena. And then one of the other challenges is the femtech name, and a few people have talked quite openly about feeling quite uncomfortable with the term femtech. It obviously brings up the debate about inclusion, and obviously with all of these conditions, the trans community can suffer from them. So if you're a trans man, you can menstruate, and that means you could have endometriosis. So the term femtech, I think, for some people is problematic in the sense it doesn't feel very inclusive. I think there's a bigger debate about biology versus gender, and a discussion around biology is important because the medical trials and the reasons why conditions aren't as well prescribed for women versus men is because of the lack of research related to like sex and biological sex. So it's an area where obviously there's a lot of discussion. I know, for example, that Cindy Gallop, who is a big investor in this area, and she runs Make Love Not Porn, feels like for her sort of developing area around sort of sexual wellness, that taboo tech is sort of a better categorization. So I can see the downsides and the upsides. I guess it does lead some people to say it makes it sound like a niche, and obviously 50% of the world's population isn't a niche. But I think it's necessary, in my opinion. I think the term femtech is necessary at the moment because it's enabling innovation to stand out and for people to start taking notice. And I think it was right that it was framed together in a certain way so that it feels like it's having a real sense of momentum behind it. So I actually think rather than seeing it as a niche, I think it can be seen as a sense of power. And I like the idea that people are like talking about it. There's a buzz about femtech. Everyone, regardless of gender or sex, are asking questions about it and beginning to look into it. So I think having a category is helpful in that sense because it can create this wave and this sense of something changing and building. So yeah, I think overall there are quite a few challenges to the category. I guess as with every category, and we all have our part to play. Like I said, in just being more open about the topics that femtech covers, making sure that you sort of vote with your own wallets and invest in these female-led products. Use it as an opportunity to explore elements of yourself that you haven't maybe in the past, or support these brands who are genuinely trying to make change to certain conditions which up to now have just been really left behind. So yeah, I think the future's bright for femtech. I'm intrigued to see how it evolves, but for now I think there's so much potential and exciting stuff. So there, that's my roundup of the challenges of the femtech industry.